The Dewoitine D.521 is a very rare French fighter in War Thunder found in the British tech tree. Let's check it out. In the mid-1930s, the French Air Force put out a request for modern fighters to replace older designs and keep pace with developments happening in other countries. The project that led to the D520 series was initiated in 1936 and focused around producing a single-engined fighter to meet the Air Force's requirements. It was to have a 20mm cannon, a maximum speed of 520 kilometers an hour, and its name is not a coincidence, and some time-to-climb requirements. It was to be powered by the Hispano-Suiza 12Y21 engine, but the project ran into administrative problems when the Dewoitine company was absorbed into a larger conglomerate. After a couple of years in development hell, the first prototype was finally constructed in 1938 and flew for the first time in the same year. Up to this point, the D520 project was entirely a privately funded venture, but the first prototype showed enough potential for the Air Ministry to offer up a formal contract to produce the plane. Now, there were a lot of problems with the early prototypes, but after some work, it did finally achieve its original design requirements, and it entered regular service in 1940. After entering service, it quickly gained a reputation as being difficult to master, and while it had respectable flight performance, it was considered to have a very pilot-heavy workload. In air combat, the D521 acquitted itself well by most accounts, with a win rate slightly better than 1-to-1. The plane is one of the few aircraft flown in regular service by both sides in World War II due to the unique situation France found itself in, and it saw at least limited service until the start of the 1950s, despite being totally obsolete after the war. A number of additional prototype variants were produced, or at least considered, most of which were the same plane, just with a different engine, but all were given new designations, the D521 up through the D525. What we have in War Thunder is the D521. This was one of the prototypes that got a new engine, specifically the Rolls-Royce Merlin III. This is a very rare fighter in Rank 2 of the British Air Tree with a battle rating of 3.3. I got this during an event back in, I think, 2014, where I had to do an all-nighter to grind out several hundred kills in one day, and I've never seen it available in the game since then. For weapons, it gets a 20mm Hispano cannon and 4 7.5mm machine guns. On the surface, that would seem to be a decent weapons combination, but you only get 60 rounds of ammo for the cannon, which runs out very quickly. On the upside, though, the cannon is pretty accurate. For ammo belts, the options you get are kinda lackluster. For the 20mm, I generally use the tracer belt or the universal belt, and for the machine guns, I usually opt just for the universal belt. The ballistic drop on the guns is quite different, but I don't usually do vertical targeting with this one. You get enough ammo for the machine guns that I really just try and focus on aiming the cannon until it runs out of ammo, since it's not really a huge loss to waste a few hundred rounds of machine gun ammo when you get over 2,500 to begin with anyway. One interesting note, in real life, the 20mm Hispano cannon couldn't fit through the Merlin engine, so despite a real unarmed prototype of the D521 being built and flown, this plane is a work of fiction as it is presented in the game. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any external weapons or anything, so its only armaments are the guns. The flight performance of the D521 is average. Very average. It doesn't have any real particular standout performance features. It climbs okay, but not great. It turns okay, but not great. Its max speed is okay, but not great, so on and so on. The engine is a little heavier, but in practice, I didn't really notice a whole lot of difference over the regular D520. The plane has combat flaps that you can safely use up to around 375 kilometers an hour, and they can give a little extra rate when you're stuck in a difficult turn fight, but just be aware that, as always, you're going to bleed off more airspeed with them. The ideal combat speed for the D521 seems to be in between about 300 and 400 kilometers an hour, as the controls are a little sluggish at lower speed, and they compress really badly in high-speed dives. In realistic battles, flying around in WEP will overheat your engine rather quickly, so you're going to want to watch your temps a little bit more than usual with this plane. Your tactics for flying the D521 into air battles are going to depend largely on the game mode. For arcade battles, this plane actually handles itself pretty well, and you can usually just dive right into the mosh pit without any hesitation. The cannon will run out of ammo quickly, but if you've got a decently upgraded crew, the reload isn't too bad, and it actually is a pretty decent puncher for this battle rating. The real catch is that its fuel tanks like to catch on fire very easily, so if you get tagged up by some stray tracers, you might go down pretty fast. In realistic battles, things are a little more complicated. Most planes, even at this BR, have at least one thing that they can work as an advantage with their flight performance. Maybe they're fast, they climb well, they turn well, they retain energy, or some other combination of these. The D521 really has no standout performance features, so you're going to be relying on your own tactics and instincts far more than your vehicle's performance. My usual playstyle in RB is to side climb out and try and hunt for bombers with the cannon. And this is a low enough tier that one 20mm cannon is still a pretty good threat to most bombers you'll face. But I do occasionally just fly it out as a low-level fighter into RB for fun. As always with low-tier RB matches, the pace of the game can be really slow, as you're going to spend a lot of idle time just flying around to different targets. And if it seems like I don't have a lot of RB footage in this video, that's why. For ground attack, since you don't have any external weapons, there isn't a lot of close air support potential. The only time I really ever use this as a ground attacker is in RB matches when I have some ammo to spend, but no targets are close enough for me to engage them before I fly home to reload. Just targets of opportunity on the ground, really. Past that, stick to air combat with the D521. Visually, this plane is pretty nice looking, and I've always thought that it looks more like a modern civilian aerobatic plane than an early World War II combat fighter. The paint job you get is brightly colored, and it looks okay, which is a good thing since it's the only one available. And this plane is actually rare enough that you really can't even find any custom skins for it that are still compatible on War Thunder Live, so this is all you get. Landing the plane is pretty basic. Its wheels drop outwards below the wings, instead of inwards under the fuselage like a BF-109 or something, and its center of gravity makes it pretty stable on final approach. You can safely drop the gear a little over 300 kilometers an hour, but for the landing flaps, you want to wait till you're below 275 or so. The CG is far enough back where you can usually lock up the brakes without tipping over forward, and that's a pretty nice feature for a tail dragger. The cockpit of the plane is just amazing. The visibility is good, the gun sight is easy, and the visual details are just wonderful. I have a lot of fun flying this out into VR. To close out on the D521 in the British Air Tree. This plane has a hard-hitting cannon that is pretty easy to aim, and it's got tons of machine gun ammo. However, its flight performance is completely average with no standout features. Ammo for the cannon is very limited, and it has no external weapons. The final verdict on the D521 is that this plane is a fun and rare oddity, but it doesn't really bring much to the table. It's more of an attention grabber than a competitor, and honestly, it's only noteworthy because of its in-game rarity. As always, thanks for watching.